Things just went from bad to worse for my favorite Yenta, Asuncion. She is going into the year worried about job security for weeks now. There have been rumors that executives at ABC, they are thinking about extinguishing the radiance of Sun Hostin. Monday morning, there was no need for the powerful boodle breeze of the whoopee cushion because Sun Hostin was filling the air with toxicity through her mouth farts. Sun caused outrage by comparing January 6th to Adolf and slavery. 24 hours later, the Daily Mail reveals that the hubby of Sun Hostin, Man Hostin, and just so you know, Man is short for Emmanuel. He was not given that nickname because he chooses to identify as the man in the relationship. 24 hours later, the Daily Mail reveals that Sun's husband, Man, he is involved in a federal RICO case and was one of nearly 200 defendants named in a lawsuit. Let me take you back to August of 2003. Uncle KC was fresh out of high school and I was preparing for my first of many years in college. My favorite rapper, T.I., he released his sophomore album that month called Trap Music. Now, this album was T.I.'s breakthrough into the mainstream after his first album flopped 2 years earlier. The last song on the album is called Long Live the Game. It's a fictional story about T.I.'s last day living a life of crime. There's one lyric in the song that every criminal can relate to. And since Man Hostin is potentially an alleged criminal, I'm sure he can now relate to this line too. Towards the end of the song, T.I. says, "The only cops that I fear are the feds." You can make the case in the criminal world, truer words have never been spoken. During the prime years of the mafia, mob guys, they were not concerned about local cops. Jimmy Burke, who was played by Robert De Niro in Goodfellas, Jimmy Burke had a famous line about the ease of paying off local cops. He said, "Cops are like feeding elephants at the zoo. All it takes is peanuts." During the prime years of the mafia, the mob guys, they weren't overly concerned with the state police. Many people believe that one of the reasons Whitey Bulger was able to operate with impunity for decades, besides the fact that he was involved with John Connolly, one of the reasons Whitey Bulger was able to operate, his brother was a high-ranking official in the state government. For the mafia, state and local cops, they were simply a nuisance. They were amateurs. They were WNBA level basketball. But there was one law enforcement agency that the mafia feared the most. The feds, the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Unlike state and local cops, the feds, they've got unlimited time and resources. Their only job is to investigate you. That's all they got to do. They'll have you under surveillance for months, maybe even years. Hell, Joe Pistone, he was undercover as Donnie Brasco for, I think, 5 or 6 years. If you're a criminal, your worst nightmare is seeing the United States of America versus Emmanuel Hostin, also known as Man Hostin, also known as Manny Hostin, also known as the better half of Sun. That is your worst nightmare. Because when the feds have you, they have you. Unfortunately for Sun and Man Hostin, that is exactly what they saw on December 17th when the federal government ensured that they would not be having a holly jolly Christmas. Make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. Link to the second channel in the description below. This morning on the second channel, talked about Derek Carr, my good friend Donnie. Talked about Donnie refusing to take a pay cut and how it's entirely possible that Donnie Carr has played his final game with the Saints. So if you haven't already, head over to the second channel and subscribe. Throughout her years as a Yenta, Sun Hostin has shared details of her marriage on The View. Last February, she made fun of her husband for his inability to cook. Now, this angered the Whoopee cushion, who referred to Sun as a bruja, except Whoopi used the English translation that rhymes with ditch. How dare you make fun of your husband's cooking? At least he cooks for you. I'm single. I have to cook my own beans to develop my boodle breeze. Sun Hostin has shared her struggles with fertility with their audience of lonely women. Last month, a week before the lawsuit against her husband was filed, the Radiant Sun Hostin, she was speaking positively about her husband and how those bastard insurance companies are always preventing him from helping people. Watch for yourself.
Only about 31% of Americans trust our healthcare system. We have a terrible healthcare system. And you know, doctors suffer because of big corporations as well. Doctors that want to do good, like my husband, you know, operates on someone even though they don't have insurance and then has to sue health insurance companies to get paid for the work that he's been trained his whole life to do.
Very interesting. According to Sun Hostin, poor Manny has to sue these insurance companies to get paid. According to Sun Hostin, these assholes are always preventing Man Hostin from doing what he loves most. I love to help people. According to the Daily Mail, that doesn't seem to be the case. Now, full transparency here, I am not a legal expert. I don't know shit about fuck when it comes to analyzing RICO cases and lawsuits. The only thing I know about RICO is that's what the feds use to dismantle the mafia. I believe RICO stands for Racketeering, Influenced, and Corrupt Organizations. Translation: if you catch a RICO charge, you're being charged with organized crime. Either way, I am no legal expert, so I'm going to read through the report from the Daily Mail so I don't get anything wrong. Man Hostin has been accused of federal insurance fraud. Man is one of almost 200 defendants in one of the largest RICO cases ever filed in New York. Now you got to remember, New York City is the home of RICO. During the mid-1980s, they used RICO to bring down the mafia. As large as the commission case was, which was led by Rudy Giuliani, as large as that case was, this case involving Man Hostin, it's bigger. Man Hostin is accused of receiving kickbacks by performing surgeries and fraudulently billing insurance companies that cover taxi drivers along with Uber and Lyft drivers. The insurance company's name, it's American Transit. Allegedly, Man Hostin would send them fraudulent invoices and he would receive kickbacks that were disguised as dividends and other cash distributions. American Transit is seeking $450 million in damages. Now, I know this can be confusing, so I give you an example of how this was allegedly done. January 2023. Man Hostin saw 2 patients at his office in Manhattan. These patients were involved in low-impact collisions, maybe a fender bender, minor car crashes that at most cause soft tissue damages, soft tissue injuries. Instead of Man Hostin treating these patients with traditional conservative care, Man Hostin allegedly performed arthroscopic surgery without seeing if conservative care would work for him. Now, I am no expert in the medical field, but I would assume that surgery is a hell of a lot more expensive. I wonder if that played a role in Man Hostin's decisions. Now, in fairness to Man Hostin, some are describing this lawsuit as a legal Hail Mary. Apparently, there have been smaller cases filed like this in the past. One attorney who represented defendants in those cases, he called this a desperate attempt by the plaintiff to wipe out large swaths of receivables by targeting smaller practices that are likely to settle because they can't afford years of litigation. So, it is entirely possible that Man Hostin is innocent. Where my confusion is coming in is the whole RICO thing. The way I'm understanding this, I don't think Man Hostin has been charged criminally. This just seems to be a lawsuit. But I always thought RICO was a criminal charge. The Daily Mail even describes it as federal insurance fraud. To me, that sounds criminal, but I couldn't find where Hostin has been indicted or criminally charged, so I don't know. But let's just assume for a second that Hostin was receiving kickbacks. Maybe he's not guilty of everything in the lawsuit, but just for the sake of argument, let's assume that something was going on here. Let's assume that he was receiving money on the back end. If that were the case, the only question I have is why? Why in the hell would Hostin do this? He's married to a television star, and it's not like they were recently married. Man has been married to Sun since 1998. Sun Hostin collects $5 million a year in woke welfare from ABC. I know they recently cut her salary from $8 million to $5 million. I know she was supposed to get a raise to $12 million at some point this year. Obviously, that ain't gonna happen. At this rate, Sun Hostin gonna be lucky to have a job by the end of the summer. But Hostin was allegedly doing all this before Sun had her pay cut. Hostin was allegedly doing this when Sun was collecting $8 million a year in woke welfare. Why? It don't make any sense. How much money do you need? Well, Casey, maybe he was feeling emasculated. Even though he is a successful doctor, he's probably making far less money than Asuncion. This can cause real problems in a marriage. Yeah, that's definitely true. Sun Hostin wasn't always making this kind of money. I would imagine for most of their marriage, Hostin was the breadwinner. It would not surprise me if Man started feeling insecure when Sun became the primary breadwinner in the household. It is tough on a lot of men if their wives make more money than they do, especially when the wife is making significantly more money. And a lot of the time, the struggle is more mental than it is financial for the dudes anyway. Men have a biological need to be the provider. Remember, we're supposed to be following the science. According to the University of Chicago, divorce rates are 50% higher when the wife makes more money than her husband. Now, divorce rates are already close to 50% under normal circumstances. Add 50% to that 50%, that is your chances of success or failure when gender roles in your marriage are off balance. So maybe Hostin was doing what he could to balance the financial scale in his marriage. I don't know. I'm just speculating here, but if that is the case, it wouldn't surprise me. But you tell me, if Hostin did this, could that be a possible reason? Either way, this has got to be embarrassing for Sun Hostin. Gonna be interesting to see if she addressed the situation this morning on The View or if she even showed up to work. I kind of feel bad for my son. Been a rough few months for her. With the rumors that ABC was already thinking about parting ways with Sun Hostin, could this lawsuit be the final straw? Let me know. Sound off in the comments below. Best way to contact me is through email, btlkc84@gmail.com. I'll see you guys later.